Angela Turner lay on the cold marble floor, one hand instinctively shielding her ribs as Officer Derek Sullivan's boot pressed harder into her side. Pain shot through her, sharp and breath-stealing. A thin line of blood slid from the corner of her mouth, tracing a bright red path down the white stone beneath her face. "Stay down," Sullivan growled, his eyes blazing with the kind of authority that didn't need to be justified. "Move again, and your husband gets it worse." Just a few feet away, her husband, Judge William Turner, knelt on the ground with his wrists locked in handcuffs. His usually steady voice trembled. "Officer, please, there's been a mistake." Sullivan didn't even look at him. "Don't talk." William tried again, quieter, desperate. "We didn't call anyone. If you could just check the—" "I said shut up." Sullivan twisted Angela's arm upward behind her back. She gritted her teeth, trying not to cry out. The 8-year veteran cop barked his charges with confidence. Domestic violence, resisting arrest, same story every night, you people always lie. His partner, Officer James Wright, rummaged through William's wallet. Outside, the otherwise peaceful night carried distant radio chatter from other patrol units. Static, dispatch codes, routine calls. Nothing about this moment felt routine. Sullivan smirked as he surveyed the pristine, million-dollar home. Riverside County's wealthiest neighborhood, not the kind of place he liked being called to, but definitely the kind of place he enjoyed exerting control. Then the smirk vanished. Wright held up a small plastic card, got his ID. Sullivan grabbed it, reading the name. His expression tightened. He read it again, then again. The tough cop facade cracked for a split second, and his fingers trembled around the license. Wright frowned. "What's wrong?" Sullivan didn't answer. But suddenly, his badge felt heavier, much heavier. 12:23 a.m., Riverside County Dispatch Center. The night had already been long. A lonely hum of computers, the low buzz of fluorescent lights, rows of screens, updates, blinking alerts. Dispatcher Maria Santos rubbed her tired eyes as another 911 call dropped into her headset. She had taken 47 calls already tonight: domestic fights, DUI reports, shoplifting, noise complaints, the usual flood of emergencies that hit on midweek nights when exhaustion makes bad decisions easier. 911, "What's the address of your emergency?" she said, fingers poised over her keyboard. The caller came in frantic, breathing hard, crying, panicked. "Domestic disturbance at Oakmont Drive. He's hurting her, please. The address is 1274 Oak." The caller's voice cracked apart before the line went dead. Maria typed quickly, the fatigue in her fingers betraying her. She entered 1247 instead of 1274. A tiny mistake. Just 2 digits reversed. But it changed everything. "Units available, respond," she announced into the dispatch system. Somewhere across the county, radio receivers crackled. Officer Derek Sullivan reached for the radio with the same irritation he used every time he was dispatched to a wealthy address. 8 years in uniform, dozens of commendations, and a reputation for not taking crap from rich folks. "Copy dispatch, en route," he said. He didn't hide his annoyance from his partner. Another call from the fancy side of town, probably some rich jerk throwing a tantrum about their prenup again. Wright tightened his vest, better than chasing gangbangers through the alleys. Sullivan snorted. "Yeah, but these people think money makes them untouchable. I like reminding them it doesn't." He had 8 prior complaints for excessive force, all dismissed, all buried under the phrases lack of evidence, unsubstantiated, no disciplinary action necessary. His supervisors called him direct. Others called him dangerous. Their cruiser glided past silent mansions, with imported cars in the driveways and lawns trimmed by gardeners who would arrive again at sunrise. Sullivan muttered, "Privileged parasites." Inside the Turner home. Inside the elegant house at 1247 Oakmont Drive, Judge William Turner sat at his mahogany desk, surrounded by shelves of legal volumes and civil rights case studies. He had spent his career enforcing the Constitution, the very document that officers like Sullivan were sworn to uphold. But tonight, he was deep in the Morrison appellate briefs, trying to decipher a tangled Fourth Amendment challenge. His reading glasses slipped slightly down his nose as he flipped another page. "Don't stay up too late, honey," Angela called softly from the kitchen. She was sorting through pediatric patient charts for her early shift the next morning. 16 years in the pediatric ICU, saving children the world gave up on, and still she hummed while she worked. Upstairs, their daughter Maya slept with her noise-canceling headphones playing soft symphonies. Straight-A student, Stanford scholarship already secured. Brilliant, quiet, focused. The Turner household was peaceful. Normal. Completely unaware that a mistyped address was sending violence straight to their door. William stretched his back, ready to call it a night. That's when the front window shattered. Two shadows burst inside. No questions. No hesitation. Just pure, unchecked authority. And within minutes, Angela lay bleeding on the marble while William's wrists were locked behind him. All because of one mistake. One reversed address. One officer with a history of crossing lines. And now Officer Sullivan stared at William Turner's ID, the name sinking in like a stone dropped into deep water. Judge. Federal. Appeals. Court. This wasn't just any arrest. This was a career-ending one. If he didn't handle it perfectly, which he absolutely hadn't. As Sullivan's face drained of color, one chilling truth hit him harder than any internal affairs investigation ever had. He hadn't just put hands on a random man. He had assaulted someone who held the power to expose everything he'd ever done. And Judge William Turner was finally opening his eyes. William Turner had spent decades on the federal bench, decades packed with headline decisions, law review footnotes, invited lectures at elite institutions, and hard-won respect from colleagues who trusted his calm, meticulous reasoning. His rulings on police misconduct and civil liberties were cited in appellate opinions and law journals. Defense lawyers called him fair, prosecutors called him unflinching. Cops who'd crossed the line whispered his name like a warning. For some, his sentences felt like retribution. For others, they felt like justice finally doing its slow work. His family's anonymity was part of that protection. Federal security protocols kept judges' private lives guarded. The Turners had relocated 2 years earlier under strict confidentiality. Neighbors assumed William worked some government legal job. Angela introduced herself as a nurse when anyone asked. They kept their social footprints small: charity barbecues, PTA donations, and the occasional neighborhood bake sale. It was a deliberate invisibility designed to keep the knives of retaliation at bay. Down the block, Officer Derek Sullivan turned his patrol car onto Oakmont Drive under the glow of antique street lamps. House numbers marched past: 1241, 1243, 1245, 1247. He pulled up in front of a stately home with manicured hedges and an expensive sedan in the driveway, a car that cost more than he took home in a year. He parked, engine idling, and let the quiet of the manicured street settle around him. "This looks pretty calm for a domestic," Officer James Wright observed through the windshield, squinting at the porch. "Yes," Sullivan said, "people like this hide their mess better. Quiet facades, loud private violence." They were supposed to wait for backup in scenarios like this, 2 officers for safety and protocol, but tonight they were alone. An affluent neighborhood, a so-called nonviolent domestic call, routine dispatch said. Sullivan checked his taser, his cuffs, the familiar weight of his radio. He liked control. He liked being the muscle that reminded people, especially those who thought their checks made them exempt, that the badge meant consequences. Through the foyer's grand windows, Sullivan could see the silhouette of a man bent over a desk. Bookshelves framed the shape, rows of legal texts and heavy volumes that suggested more than a casual interest in law. But Sullivan's assumptions rushed ahead of the facts. A black man in a posh home after midnight, The pattern in his mind skipped from there to criminality, drugs, stolen goods, hidden deals. He told himself the suspicion was instinct and duty. It was easier that way than admitting unease. The front door opened before Sullivan knocked. Angela stood framed in the doorway in hospital scrubs, worry creasing her face. "Officers, is there a problem?" she asked. Her voice was steady, practiced. "We got a report of domestic violence at this address," Sullivan announced, pushing through the threshold without waiting for an invitation. His posture left no room for politeness. "We didn't call anyone," Angela replied, calm but alert. "My husband's in his office. There's no fight happening here." Wright followed, hand hovering near his radio, eyes scanning the polished interior. The foyer gleamed, marble floors, a Persian runner, art on the walls, too refined, in Sullivan's words, for the people standing before him. "Step back, ma'am," he said. "Where's your husband?" "In his office," she indicated, voice not raising, "down the hall." Sullivan's tone slid from clip to sharp. "Call him out here, now." William appeared at the doorway between the study and hallway, spectacles still on his nose, a stack of briefs in his hand. He looked every inch the jurist, composed, precise, the tired calm of someone used to measuring words before he used them. "Officers, may I ask the nature of your visit?" he said. Sullivan's jaw tightened. Seeing William, a large, dignified black man in an upscale home in the dead of night, did nothing to cool the prejudice that had been warming inside him all evening. "Someone called and said you were beating your wife," he said, flat as a verdict. William's eyebrows rose. "That's impossible," he answered, voice steady but with a clip of restrained anger. "We have not argued tonight. There has been no violence." "Don't lie to me," Sullivan snapped, taking a step closer. His body language was a law all its own, proximity as intimidation. He reached for his cuffs like someone reaching for a familiar script. Wright hesitated, watching the exchange. He'd worked with Sullivan long enough to know the other man's temper, the quick pivot from sarcasm to force. Even so, Wright's eyes flicked from Sullivan to William, reading the room for threats that weren't there. He was a cop who wanted to do the right thing. He was also a man who didn't want to disagree with a partner who had a way of making disagreement a dangerous move. Angela moved in front of William without thinking, instinct more than bravery, placing herself between the officers and her husband. "Please, there must be some mix-up," she said. "We haven't done anything. You can check our cameras, our phones." "Save it," Sullivan snarled. He scanned the room like a judge delivering a contempt ruling. "We got a report. That's enough." William kept his hands visible, palms slightly open, a posture trained by decades in courtrooms where gestures could be evidence. "Officer," he said carefully, "if you believe there's been a report, check the dispatch log. You'll find the caller's information. You can verify where they reported from." Sullivan laughed, a short, ugly sound. "Yeah, I can do that." He jabbed his thumb toward the hallway. "Step out so we can sort this out." The Turner home, so carefully curated, felt suddenly small. The quiet of the night hadn't prepared them for the rawness of confrontation under the lights. A neighbor 2 houses down had their blinds parted. A sliver of a shoulder and a phone glow indicated someone watching. Somewhere inside the house, a framed photograph of Maya on the mantel caught the light. A 16-year-old smile, unaware, the world of scholarship and steady routines that her parents had worked to build. Sullivan's face had hardened into an expression that could have been carved from stone. But when he stepped closer, there was less conviction in his eyes and more something like adrenaline feeding on fear, fear dressed up as righteous anger. "Out," he ordered, voice low, "both of you." William paused a breath, then moved toward the hallway. The papers he held crinkled in his hand, case law, precedent, a lifetime's work, and for a single sharp moment they looked fragile. The scene was a study in contrasts, a judge who had spent his career dismantling misuse of police power now being herded by it through his own home. As William stepped into the hallway, Sullivan thumbed his radio. The click sounded too loud. For the briefest instant, the room seemed to hold its breath. And then something happened that no one in that foyer expected. A small, ordinary movement that would ripple into consequences none of them could predict. William Turner offered to show the officers everything, the dispatch logs, the security cameras, his ID, but Sullivan's next move didn't ask for proof. He chose action over reason. William Turner had been questioned thousands of times in courtrooms, but never like this, never in his own home, never under the grinding, reckless hostility now filling his foyer. Officer Sullivan leaned forward with the swagger of a man who believed the badge gave him permission to rewrite reality. "We get domestic calls around here all the time," he sneered. "You people don't know how to control yourselves." Angela's face twitched at the phrase, "you people." She had heard it whispered, weaponized, laced through conversations all her life, the kind of prejudice that comes dressed as authority. William's jaw tightened. Not anger, not fear, control. The same control he used while sentencing corrupt officers from the bench. The same control that kept him calm in situations designed to provoke. "Officer," he said carefully, "we have not engaged in any domestic altercation. It may be the wrong address. Oakmont Drive has several homes that sound similar." Sullivan's eyes flashed. "Oh, now you're telling me how to do my job." His hand slid toward his baton, fingers brushing the handle like he wanted William to see it. Beside him, Officer Wright clicked on his body-worn camera. A red dot blinked, steady as a heartbeat. William raised his hands slightly, not fear, but clarity. "No, sir, I'm simply saying it would be reasonable to confirm with dispatch." "I already double-checked it," Sullivan lied without hesitation. 1247, domestic violence in progress. He jabbed his finger toward Angela, and look at her, defensive wounds all over. Angela instinctively touched her cheek, confused. "Defensive? Officer, those marks aren't." "I see bruising under your eyes," Sullivan snapped. "Fresh injuries." Angela blinked. "There are no bruises. I just left work an hour ago. These are hospital scrubs, not." "Stop covering for him." Sullivan's voice rose like a whip crack. "You're terrified to tell the truth because he's standing right there." William stepped a single inch closer, hands still visible. "With respect, sir, you're drawing conclusions without." "Don't move toward me," Sullivan barked, even though William hadn't. "I'm standing in my own home," William replied quietly. "Your home," Sullivan scoffed. "Right, and how'd you pay for it, huh? Drug money, gang cash, prostitution ring, don't insult me." The racism hit like a physical strike. Angela felt it, Wright felt it, even the air seemed to recoil. "I work for the government," William answered, voice tight but controlled. "My wife is a nurse. We purchased this home." "Oh right," Sullivan interrupted mockingly. "Government job, let me guess, some public defender paycheck? This house costs over $2 million. You telling me the government pays you enough for this?" Angela stepped beside her husband, shoulders squared. "If you'll just check our identification, you'll see." "I'll check whatever I choose to check." Sullivan lifted his handcuffs. "Right now, I'm investigating domestic battery and possible narcotics activity." "Narcotics," William repeated sharply. "On what basis?" "On the basis that you fit the profile," Sullivan said with a cold grin. "Blackmail, expensive home, nervous behavior, wife with injuries." "I do not have injuries," Angela protested. Sullivan's grin grew wider. His partner shifted uneasily. "Maybe we should." "Maybe you should shut your mouth and let me handle this," Sullivan snapped without looking at him. Wright went silent, jaw clenched. "I have probable cause," Sullivan declared. "Probable cause for what?" William asked. "Domestic battery, drug possession, resisting arrest." "I haven't resisted anything," William said calmly. "You haven't been arrested yet." Sullivan reached for his cuffs. William instinctively took a step back. Angela moved toward her husband, trying to shield him. "Don't move," Sullivan roared. "Both of you, hands where I can see them." The blinking red camera caught everything, the tone, the aggression, the escalating bias. Angela positioned herself directly in front of her husband. "Officer, please, we can resolve this peacefully." What happened next lasted less than a second. Sullivan's fist shot forward. A sickening thud. Angela's head snapped sideways. Blood burst instantly from her nose. She staggered backward, shocked, bracing herself against the edge of a marble pedestal. Wait, she gasped. William surged toward her on instinct. His mind didn't have time for rational thought. Wright reacted faster. He wrapped his arms around William from behind, driving him down. William's forehead cracked against the marble floor. The impact jarred his teeth. "Get off her," William choked. "Shut up," Wright snapped, though his voice wavered. He forced William's arms behind him and snapped the cuffs tight. Angela tried to push herself up, blood running over her lips. I'm okay." Sullivan kicked her in the ribs. Her breath ripped away in a broken cry. She folded sideways, hand clutching her side. "Stop, please," William struggled, his cheek pressed to the cold marble. "She's a nurse, she hasn't done anything." "She interfered with an officer," Sullivan barked. "That's obstruction." "She was protecting me," William shouted. "You assaulted her." Wright's jaw tightened. He looked down at William, then at Angela, then at Sullivan. The camera on Wright's chest kept recording. Each blink of the red dot felt louder than the room itself. Sullivan wasn't finished. He stepped toward Angela again, rage swelling in his chest, rage that had no cause except the color of the family he had chosen to target. Angela lifted her hand in front of her face, eyes wide with fear. For the first time that night, Wright finally spoke. "Derek," he said quietly, "that's enough." The words landed like a spark in a room full of gasoline. Sullivan turned his head slowly, eyes narrowing, venom building in his voice as he prepared to respond. And the next words out of his mouth would change everything. As the camera blinked red and Angela lay gasping on the floor, Sullivan turned on his own partner with fury, ready to silence the only witness strong enough to expose him.